Robert, we could do it that way, or we could do the Mentimeter if folks just wanted to say their names in the circle, and then we could do the icebreakery thing through the slideshow.
That sounds good.
Okay. And see lots of new people joining us. Maybe give it one more minute if that's okay.
I don't know where folks are around the state, but here in central-ish Kentucky, depending on where you live, you call central something else. But the Elizabethtown area, we've had a major network outage. And so I was not even sure I was going to be able to connect, but it looks like they might have it back up at least partially. So if I get kicked out, I'll be back on my phone. Just give me a minute because it's a different network.
Will do. Hey, OJ.
Hello. I heard somebody had a power outage somewhere.
Network outage, yes.
Network outage. Oh boy.
Took us all down for a while, so it was kind of fun.
I bet.
Looks like people are still jumping in.
Okay, folks. As folks come in, we will be sure to include everyone. If we have to go back and reshare any information, we will. We obviously are going to just kick off here in just a moment, and we're going to review some of the data that this group helped to generate. And obviously that was a big lift, and we want to extend gratitude for that effort. Before we get into that, though, we've now met at least once, but we're going to go around and maybe just we're going to share our name. I would say also what institution or what our affiliation is, and then we'll also have an opportunity to have a little bit more fun with some icebreaker options that we will get to do here in just a minute. And those are not. Those are nothing that you had to prepare for. They would just be sort of quick and fun things that just to give us a different perspective on some stuff. I will kick off, and I will hand over quickly to my co-lead, and then we will just start going one after the other. So after we do introductions, if we could just offer up another person that you see on your slide, and we will work our way through it until we get everyone. I am Robert Hayes. I'm the Executive Director of Student Community Resources and Services at the University of Kentucky, and I serve as a co-lead for this group. I will switch it over to the other co-lead, and Lily, you can take over from there.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Massa-McKinley, and I am the Executive Director of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative, which is an initiative out of CPE, really about bringing partnerships, bringing people together to work on these student success issues from, I think, a much more holistic and partnership-oriented lens. So really excited to be a part of this work group specifically. And I will pass it to Lauren.
Hi, everybody. Lauren Norton. I am an Associate Director at Education Strategy Group, or ESG. Sadly, not a Kentuckian. I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina, though at a conference now. This is not my normal background. So I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now. Have been working with the Kentucky team since the Continuum was launched about 1.5 years ago. So excited. I see a couple familiar faces that I've met over the past year and some in the past week. So excited to meet all of you all today. And I am going to pass it to Sandra.
Sandra Kimberlane, Director of Academic Advising for Elizabethtown Community and Technical College, which is part of the Kentucky Community and Technical College.
Sandra, I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I'll speak louder. Sorry, we have 3 screens. Let me get closer to the microphone. Sandra Kimberlane, Director of Academic Advising, Elizabethtown Community and Technical College, part of the Kentucky Community and Technical College System. And I'll throw it to Robin.
I was sort of reading your lips, Sandra. I didn't know if you had passed it to me, but my name is Robin Abear, and I work in the K-12 policy and programs unit at the Council on Post-Secondary Education. I'm just popping in today. Amanda Ellis is on vacation. She usually is here, so I'm just kind of here to provide moral support and to also just listen into the conversation today. I'm super excited about the feedback that you all been gathering. I'm excited to hear all about that. So let's see here. I will pass it to Dan.
Well, good afternoon. Robin, thank you for passing that to me. Dan Connell, Morehead State University, and been involved in access and success efforts for many years. So glad to be part of this. And I see Barrett out there, so I know Barrett, so I'll pass it right to him.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Good to see you.
See you.
My name is Barrett Ross. I'm a research analyst here at the Kentucky Center for Statistics, and we've primarily been involved in this project by pulling some data out of the longitudinal data system for the state to share with the group. And any other support we can offer in that arena, we're happy to do so. I actually double booked today, so I'm not going to stick around too long, but I did want to join long enough to say that if you guys decide you have any data needs that you think we might be able to help out with, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll try to pull some stuff together for you. And I will toss it over to Tony.
Tony, we can't hear you. Do you think you could try a new microphone?
How's that?
There you go.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Barrett. So as I was saying, my name is Tony Bartley, and I am a post-secondary transition coordinator for Gear Up Kentucky. The Council on Post-Secondary Education administers our grant, and I serve students in the first year of college at EKU, BCTC, and UK. And I will pass it to Leah.
Good afternoon. I'm Leah Murphy. I am a parent member on this work group. I'm also serve on the SBDM Council at my children's school, Scapa Bluegrass, and I'm a recent Sybil graduate.
Do you want to pass it to someone, Leah?
Sorry. I will pass it to Dan Connell.
Well, I've already introduced myself, so that's all right. We'll pass it to OJ. How's that?
That works for me. Hi, everybody. My name is OJ Oleka. I am the president of the Association of Independent Kentucky Colleges and Universities. That's all of our private colleges and universities in Kentucky. Berea is where my wife went, so it's the one I always like to mention. First, Bellarmine is where I went for grad school, so I mentioned that as well. But there are 18 total. I get to represent their interest in Frankfurt and DC, and also in this conversation. And I'm going to pass it to one of my favorite people, Miss Phyllis.
Oh, Jay, I love you. Thank you. And hi, everybody. Hope everybody is well today. I'm Phyllis Clark, and I serve as one of the associate directors for the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative. And I will pass the ball to one of my favorite people, Katie Adamczyk.
Good afternoon. I'm Katie Adamczyk. I'm the Director of Student Success at the University of Louisville and have been in success work, advising, retention, access work for 20 years, starting at Berea with Gear Up there and moving around a little bit. And so my role now is really coordinating a lot of the success conversations and helping eliminate barriers and any kind of problem solving we need to keep students moving forward. So I spend a lot of time in meetings. But I will pass it to, let's see, Trinity, have you gone?
Hi there, I'm Trinity Walsh. I am new with CPE. I am part of the Kentucky Advising Academy and work with Destiny O'Rourke, but I'm kind of a dual person because I'm also a coordinator of early post-secondary opportunities and I work with Robin Eber as well. So I'm kind of doing a couple different things with CPE. So excited to be a part of this group. Let's see, I will pass it to Joette.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joette Fields, and I am a business specialist with CPE and the P20 Policy and Programs Unit, and I am here to provide administrative support to this group. And I will pass it to Brett Foster.
Hey, Joette, you forgot to say one of your favorite people before that.
I already
Just-
know that. Everybody knows that. You were my favorite person.
Thank you, Joette. Just want to be loved. That's all. Hey, everyone. My name is Brett Foster, and I am a senior fellow at CPE. I work with Robin and Amanda Ellis, and I am here today to listen and learn and to write down some of the best quotes of the day. And my camera will be off because mostly my head will be down typing or writing. So I'm great to be here with you today. Happy hump day. And I'm going to say, Lily, have you gone yet?
Yep, I think Nicole hasn't gone yet. Is Nicole, might you be the last?
Did Robert go? Did I miss Robert too?
Oh, and Mathis. Okay, so Nicole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm Nicole Diebold. I'm the program officer at the CENS Foundation based in Louisville, Kentucky.
I'll just put myself on a nominate by myself to go. My name's Mateus Meyer. I'm from Eastern Kentucky, University of Pikeville, and I lead our retention service here. It's a combination of traditional student affairs and student success. Glad to be here.
Okay, I think that that wraps up all the introductions. We definitely have representation from across the state and from all different sorts of folks. This is really great. Lily, are you able to transition over to the, there we go. Sorry, I am not a pro with this, so I appreciate the assistance. So just a really quick reminder, if you've not already, just to have your name in your little box that just so we have an example there that just shows your designated institution. And so we can do that and we can advance on. Today, really, we are going to jump into that quick activity where we can identify some of those fun things we like through our icebreaker. But really, we're going to dig into some of the stakeholder feedback that everyone worked really hard to collect. And then we're going to do some ranking, trying to set some priorities as far as what it is that we'd like to focus on. And then we will, toward the end, we'll get to conclude and have a sense of what our next steps are going to be and what we will focus on. And actually, it looks like I jumped ahead. So anyway, this is just a quick reminder of what we're going to focus on for the day. Really digging into that stakeholder feedback, and we will have an in-depth presentation here in just a moment from ESG that can show that, and we'll certainly we may do a bit of thematic analysis over what has been found, or at least we'll get to start on that today, as that's certainly an iterative process, but we'll definitely get started. So Lily, I'm going to just ask for some guidance on this one, or actually maybe if you would, could you explain what would be the best way to do this?
Sure. So if y'all haven't used Mentimeter before, Menticom, whatever, it's just a much more interactive presentation format. And so basically, if you go to menti.com and then you'll add in our code, this is a Wordle. And so there's like 3 questions that we're going to ask the whole group. And we just want to get like people's thoughts, what are your faves? And we'll be able to see them as soon as you guys start submitting your responses and just get a cool picture of our eclectic group here. I will follow along. Oh yeah. Okay.
Nice.
We have some very awesome music tastes here in this group. Okay, did everybody get a chance? Anyone having any technical difficulties? Because we're going to do this kind of a lot. Okay.
Hey, Lily, I couldn't find where to put the name in. Where was that again?
So when you pull up, I don't know, I did it on my phone. And so when I went to menti.com, then you put the code in right at the top. And then this slide pulled up and there was just best band to see in concert. And there was an open box. And if you click on that, your keyboard will pop up and you can enter you could do it on your computer as well. So the thing is that if multiple people vote on the same one, then it gets bigger and bigger. So we all have right now like a different favorite person to see in concert. Although I could have totally co-signed on many of these artists here. Okay, we got it all. Let's see what else we got. Okay, so now in your menti.com, it should advance automatically to the next question. Ooh, grape nuts. Who's our healthy person? Wheaties. I see some Honey Nut Cheerios. That got a couple votes. So good. Fruit Loops. All right, do we all get a chance to vote? Okay. Now we know what snacks to bring for the next meeting, if we ever meet in person. Okay, what are you doing for fun this summer? Now this one is more short answer. It doesn't have to be just one word, but you could, whatever you want. Nice. Lots of beach time, pool time. Whoa, Barcelona. I kind of wish I knew who was writing each of these. Awesome. Shakespeare Festival. I need to know who is going to the Utah Shakespeare Festival. Leah, that sounds cool. Are you performing?
No. My in-laws have gone for years and and have wanted us to bring the kids. So we finally relented this summer and we go next week.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so cultural.
Well, we are staying a night in Vegas, so.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for just playing around. Always good to get to know each other a little bit and look forward to kind of building the relationships in this group. I think that the partnership piece is really essential as we're going to start getting into the actual work. So always important time spent. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, who is going to share our data and some of those insights.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm going to do my very, very best to share what I saw as some of the key themes from all of the interviews and focus groups that you all did over the past about 6 weeks. So let me go ahead and get into presentation mode. We'll say, so the bulk of this meeting, so I'm going to try and wrap up this feedback here in the next 15 to 20 minutes. The rest of the meeting is going to be an opportunity for you to be able to discuss, ask questions, probe, figure out what the implications are for your work. But that said, if there are clarifying questions as we're going along, please feel free either to take yourself off mute and interject or drop some questions in the chat, and we can take some time to be able to talk about any of those. So wanted to start with just giving you guys a breakdown of who you all talk to, and as I share what some of these key themes and pieces of feedback are, what the voices are that we're really hearing from. We'll start by just saying huge kudos to you all. Not that it was a competition, but amongst the 3 CEC work groups, you blew everyone out of the water in terms of the number of stakeholders that you all engaged. And so overall, you guys talked with 53 representatives. This is as of about 2 weeks ago. I know there's probably been 1 or 2 that have trickled in since we created this presentation. So thank you immensely for all of the work that you guys did to hold some of these conversations and gather some of this feedback. You'll notice in terms of the breakdown by role, you guys talked with a ton of students, particularly high school students, about their experience. And so a lot of the insights that we'll share are directly related to the student experience, which I think is really powerful. You'll notice we also had 1 parent perspective of a current undergraduate student, as well as you'll see them listed on the slides just as higher education staff, but most of those higher ed individuals were either program coordinators or program directors of kind of first year experience programs at institutions across the state. And then we also had 1 focus group with a community-based organization, and so have some of their kind of third-party staff represented here too. In terms of geography, so most, just according to this, are from Central or Eastern Kentucky, with a couple more in Western Kentucky. Want to note, though, we did not define what these regions were for you. So these are not tied to the regional co-ops. We didn't say what falls in Central versus East. So there might be a little bit more geographic diversity than you see represented here. So overall, I think this is pretty strong in terms of getting a taste of what the experience is across the state of Kentucky. And then as we look at the diversity of who we interviewed, so as far as race and ethnicity, about 2/3 of the interview or focus group participants were white, and about 20% were Black, and others, I know there's a focus group with some Hispanic students and a couple biracial students. Overall, this is pretty reflective, particularly given that you guys spoke to so many students. This is pretty reflective of the public school enrollment that we see in K-12. Even though it is pretty heavily weighted towards white students. So I think it still kind of fits the diversity criteria we set at the outset. Did talk to more female students than male students. I think this isn't unexpected, but I think maybe as we think about if you guys end up doing any more interviews, I know there's been pretty significant post-secondary enrollment nationwide for our male students. And so gathering some of that male perspective, we know will be important too. But you guys also noted diversity in other ways, just beyond some of these categories. So I know a couple of you, even if you were talking with a white middle-class high school counselor, noted that they're working for a district that primarily serves low-income students, and so we're representing the voices of those students. We had many rural students, first-gen, low-income, and LGBTQ+ students, or the staff members who support them represented too. So overall, I think you guys did a really fantastic job in elevating the kind of diversity of the state, particularly given we didn't plan this from the outset. You guys each chose who you wanted to interview. And so I think given that we have a number of different perspectives captured in this. So I saw a couple key themes. You'll have an opportunity again after I share to see if there's anything else that you would elevate based off of the conversations that you had, but tried to bucket them into a few different categories that we'll talk through. So the first is academic preparation. This one we heard a number of different perspectives on. It's a little bit more nuanced. So overall, I think we heard that not all students are prepared to succeed in college level work, particularly as it relates to the volume of reading that they need to do once they enter college, the kind of diversity of writing styles that they need to engage in, and then of course in their math coursework. We also heard that students need support with building some of those other kind of college readiness skills. So things like time management, study skills, communication, self-efficacy, making sure that they are fully prepared for the full kind of academic experience of college coursework. But I think what you'll see here, so if you look at that bottom left quote, I think this is where some of that nuance comes in. So one of our higher education staff members said, students are often okay with the math, but have gaps with organization, time management, growth mindset, and emotional intelligence. They think they're behind in math, but it is really these other things. And so recognizing that it's really important to be building the full kind of academic skill set of our students. Something I thought that was interesting that came up in a number of the student conversations was kind of the number one answer for why do you want to go to college was to be able to get a fulfilling career. And a couple of the students said, you know, I wish my high school would have provided more opportunities for me to either do career exploration through an internship or other work-based learning opportunity, or for us to have stronger career pathway programs that would have led me to have more insight into what my career opportunities are, which I thought was really insightful. And then just overall, in terms of the academic preparation, the students who felt they were most prepared for college cited participating in dual credit as being a really valuable experience for making that transition. Next theme we saw was around social capital. So recognizing that it's important for students to have the relationships to help them navigate the transition into post-secondary and career, not only with the multiple different adults in their life, but also with their peers. We heard from many students that they didn't really know who to reach out to for support, either at their high school or at their college, whether it was with some of the procedural steps of making that transition to post-secondary, so things like completing the FAFSA or completing college applications, or just in terms of successfully making that transition into post-secondary. At the same time, things students were most excited about in terms of that transition were the opportunity to be independent. But that's also something that they're really worried about and kind of value the opportunity to have others help guide them into that next stage of their life. We heard that both from parents and higher education staff that it's really important that students are able to build really strong, trusting relationships and that they have a sense of belonging once they're on campus. I think the quote from the higher education staff puts it pretty well. They said, successful students must have a sense of connection to faculty and classmates and a positive mindset about their ability to achieve their goals. It offers students a sense of place in their first year. I think the most frequently cited model I saw across your guys' interviews was the use of peer mentors. I know there's a number of different kind of ways and models to help students build some of those relationships. Next theme is around financial aid and literacy. Biggest response when you all asked students what they were most afraid of was, how am I going to pay for college? And I think this was echoed in what we heard from the high school counselors and the higher education staff, where they said we need students and families to have more information, not only about completing the FAFSA and about scholarship opportunities that are available to them, but even more broadly around financial literacy so that we can really empower students about the financial decisions that they're going to be making. So even things like loans and credit and taxes and kind of the full picture that comes with being an independent student once they make that transition into college. I think primarily kind of a theme we saw in a lot of the quotes that you guys shared was the fact that students don't necessarily know when and how to be able to ask for help. And so often they're getting help when it's already kind of too late and they're in crisis mode, which you see in kind of both of these quotes here. Next is around wraparound supports. So heard a lot around, particularly given the pandemic, students need more holistic supports to help them make that transition into post-secondary. So this includes things like mental health support, resources to be able to address food and housing insecurity, and as well as just better employment opportunities. So I think a lot of you heard that a lot of our college students are working while they're in college. And we need kind of more opportunities that, one, pay a living wage, two, are flexible to their school schedules, and even better if we can find more opportunities that are aligned with what students want to be doing as a career, so that they can also serve as work-based learning opportunities. I thought it was interesting to hear one higher education staff member said, our institution actually is pretty good at providing these types of supports during their first year, but by the time students get into their second year and beyond, either, in their words, they disappear, or we aren't as good about helping students navigate where to go and who to ask for to be able to access some of those supports, even if they do exist. So we heard a couple different ways to improve wraparound supports. I think we heard from our community-based partner. They called for additional kind of success coaches, which is their model, to be able to provide some of those supports to students in a more holistic way. And then last theme to share with you all is around partnerships. So we know kind of across sectors, folks are stretched thin. There's not a lot of capacity, and so it becomes really essential for folks on the high school side, on the post-secondary side, and the other community-based partners really to work in collaboration with one another to provide some of these supports to students. Saw lots of quotes, both from our K-12 representatives and our higher education representatives, of their kind of yearning and want to be able to strengthen the partnerships that they have, not only across sectors, but also within their own sectors. So for example, some of our higher education staff said, we need our academic side and our student affairs side to work a little bit more in tandem so that we can provide some of these holistic supports to students. And so before I turn it all to you, wanted to just bring up a couple spotlights of existing promising practices and some of the assets that you guys have across Kentucky that you guys might look to. First is around early warning systems. So as this quote shows, one of the higher education staff, by being able to have data, we can provide early intervention to students, foster more collaboration between university offices, and provide a more holistic system of student support. Second is around summer bridge and orientation, which we know most, if not all, of our institutions are offering at least one, if not both. We also know the state is offering institutional grants to be able to expand their summer bridge programming, and we'll have some learnings coming out of that program. This quote is from a student who said, being able to walk around and see the whole campus during my bridge week without having to rush to and from class around people who already know where they're going was really helpful to me. So we heard from a couple different students, these kind of early opportunities to explore the college environment was really beneficial in making that transition. Next, I've already started to mention around peer mentors, but mentorship programs in general were frequently cited as a strong asset. So one program at UK offers a mentorship opportunity for first generation students. They not only have access to a mentor, but they also live in the same community, and they all take the same like UK 101 class together. And then lastly, in response to the kind of academic preparation piece, both on the K-12 side and the higher education side, you guys talked with individuals who spotlighted tutoring and other academic support programs. But this one was pretty interesting. They have their students meet one-on-one with their school administrator and show them their current grades. Students who are what they deem more at risk keep these study journals that kind of talk through their study skills and how they're pursuing their coursework. And they have conversations with them about their study habits and how they're balancing their work and how it fits into their post-secondary plans. So I think that's an example of a very individualized, high intensity support program compared to kind of other tutoring programs that we've seen across the state. So overall, I'm guessing none of this is surprising, and hopefully reinforces what you guys heard in your conversations and what your experience is in your own work day to day. Overall, I think there's a ton of really great work happening across Kentucky. So even though a lot of what we shared, I think, is more focused on challenges and things that we can do a little bit better to be able to support students and families, I think there's already a lot of good work going on too. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. and maybe want to see if there's any just quick clarifying questions before I pass it back to Lily and Robert. All right, Lily and Robert, I'll pass it back to you for us to move on to the discussion.
Thank you. That was great. As you said, and actually I think it was very affirming. I don't think a lot of that was really surprising, but definitely it was nice to see that so many of the themes and the commentary, it was similar despite the the significant variance we had of folks that we were engaging with. I really liked it. We won't dwell on this because we'll have an opportunity to come back and discuss, but I like how your themes, they have the potential to open up some really holistic solutions instead of just focusing on a thing like academic preparation. We led with that, but then it was bolstered very well. So it was a great presentation of the findings. So thank you very much. Okay. All right, Lily, I am looking at the slide, I think. There we go. Oh, okay. Sorry, it took mine a second to get caught up. Okay. So my thinking is, and I'm sort of thinking out loud here, so will folks have the opportunity, actually, I'm just asking, will folks have the opportunity to add in their own feedback, or are we going to do some speaking and recording notes based on the next questions that we go through?
Well, I'm happy to take notes if we just we have there. So this is a Miro board, and so I'm not like really great at Miro. Clearly, but there's 4 different boards here that we kind of want to take some time and respond to each of these different questions. And so I don't know, Robert, if you want to facilitate the question, and then when people talk, I can take some notes and then put the sticky on the board for us.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really good. And we will also have an opportunity toward the end to let some of the presentation sink in a bit, and we can we'll add some feedback to that. So what I would do is encourage folks, I will essentially present the question and bring yourself off mute and chime in, and we just want to make sure that we capture your feedback during this. So just to lead us off, really just want to think about this process for you. When you were conducting the interviews, or maybe you did focus groups, how did this process, how did it change your perception of first-year student success? Or possibly, how did it just add to or expand your understanding? Really looking forward to hearing some feedback on the process.
This is Sandra. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. I think, to me, one of the biggest things is that it's not a first year. It's a multi-year process to get to first year success. So it has to involve the high schools and the post-secondary. So it's a multi-year process as opposed to just the first year.
I think I agree with Sandra. I just think this past week, some other grants were announced, and the kind of that idea of the linkage between literacy, and I think it even goes further back, right? So it's multi-year processes. I mean, for me, it largely confirmed what we've been seeing. I mean, it's kind of confirmational to see that other people and our students, all the stakeholders, are saying some of the things we've been trying. So, I mean, there's affirmation happening there for us too, that we're on the right track. But that this is a much longer process than we think. We cannot start with a senior and think we're going to put them and have first year success. It's a little bit more comprehensive.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I found, was that we need to start earlier. ninth grade, 10th grade. I think there's a lot of information. A lot of responses that I got from students was that they had no idea really what was going on. And it was kind of like a smack in the face. I was like, really? And so working with Gear Up, we have folks in the schools that are working with them on these things, and just to hear them say that they feel, completely lost when it comes to college transition, that they don't feel prepared at all. Like 82% of them said only somewhat or unprepared. And I was just like, wow.
I had a similar experience talking to a rising high school senior who told when I probed about, is there someone at your school that can help you navigate the financial aid and kind of all the stuff outside of academics you have to do to be ready? And this is a high performing student, and said, no, there is nobody at my school that can help me with those things. And I don't know if that is the case or not, but that is her perception. And so she did not feel like there was anyone she could reach out to with questions, but also being a 17-year-old next fall seemed to feel really far away to her. And so there was a lot of, well, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I haven't decided. And that is very typical of 17, but it really disadvantages you in this particular context where there are deadlines and things you have to fill out much earlier than you probably have ever filled out anything in your life up to that age.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was going to say something else that really stuck out to me was a lot of folks that I know, and even myself, always looked at high school counselors as the go-to person for all information, college access. And we know as educators that, they're spread drastically too thin like everyone else. But in seeing the answers presented, just to think about all the differences between universities, whether it be 2-year or 4-year, or just within the same university programs, there is no way that any one counselor could provide the necessary resources for every student without spending a drastic amount of time on research and things of that nature. So I think, it would be a good idea to see how we could go about streamlining information to the high school as far as fields of study or fields of interest, meta majors, and how they relate to careers, things of that nature.
Phyllis, your hand is up, so you go before me because you're actually following the rules, unlike me who blurted out.
That's just something I do. I don't even know if that was a rule, but I did hear you try to speak first. So you want to jump in, OJ?
Well, sure. I'll be quick. The thing that makes me think of, in perception, obviously, perception is reality because it's how you feel, but a lot of that is layered upon comfortability. And it was a point that I was making similar to Leah's. I talked to some students from GSP, the best of the best in terms of preparation and likelihood to go on to college or do whatever they would want to do after high school. And a lot of those students don't really feel prepared either. So I think part of this is, it goes back to the culture in high schools, to what we're saying now. You got to start early. It's got to come from 9th grade. But a lot of this too is almost laying down check marks to say, you won't feel perfect, but like, this is what it looks like to be prepared. And I'll give a quick silly analogy. We've had two children born since the pandemic started, so I've been thinking about babies a whole lot. And as a new dad, it was like, I don't feel prepared. I'm not going to be prepared. But like, there's stuff, because you can't totally be prepared for college if you've never been, for what comes after high school if that's never existed for you. But there are certain things that you need. For me as a dad, we needed a car seat to take the baby home. Needed a bassinet or a crib, somewhere for the baby to sleep. Little stuff like that. So I think if we're talking about, I don't know, potential solutions that could come from perceptions, and I always go this far and I go too long, so my apologies on that, but a little checklist to say, look, here are the things that you need, and it may not make you feel more prepared, but you will actually be more prepared which is just as real and sometimes more important. Okay, Phyllis, please go.
You set me up. Yeah, because I am thinking about this in a little bit of a different way in terms of looking at our younger population as consumers of education. And when you feel like you're not prepared, it's because there's just something you just don't know, right? And so we can fill in these gaps by maybe, gosh, forgive me for making this so simplified, but if we could standardize some things across the board, I know statewide some things are, but if we can do that more, because if we think about them as like little adults in terms of the way they're getting their education or getting not the egg yolk is the education, but the white stuff outside of it, that's even more stuff that they have to have. And that's where all the college preparation and things come in, right? Well, attention has to be drawn to that in such a way where it's creative and it's innovative and it continues to come at them. So just like we're being marketed to by Apple and Nike, folks have got to have some engagement in some different clever, creative ways. And so it has to hit them about anywhere from 7, I hear it's probably 15 times now, that one little thing has to hit us in order for us to keep it top of mind. So I'm thinking about it from a business model like aspect. I have no expertise in that. I just know what I go through as someone who loves Apple. But
I love that perspective. And it makes perfect sense. One of the things that the students that I was interviewing said over and over is they were worried about paying for it. They had no idea about financial aid, just over and over and over again. And I think, like you're saying, in the private sector, folks aren't going to expect anyone to purchase a product that they don't know anything about, and they're not prepared to learn to use it. So it makes perfect sense, Phyllis.
I think another factor was thinking about, I think OJ said, someone said, the culture of the high school. I think the culture of the high school really is important because the groups that I interviewed all were from different high schools. And some of the students reported some really positive, neat things that were going on at their high school, where others, nothing, they got no support. So it's just kind of interesting that really varies by the culture. Some schools are really ingrained in a culture of career and college success and transition, and others have not. And several of the students who were at schools that felt so they were being supported talked about their teachers, that it was not only the counselor, it was in the classroom. And the teachers played an important role of helping them prepare for ACT. The teachers took time to talk about career and things, those types of things. So really depended on the school they were coming from. And these were all Eastern Kentucky schools, the group that I interviewed. So very rural schools, Eastern Kentucky, but it really varied about how they felt their school was supporting them.
I think it's interesting. I love the analogy you used, Miss Phyllis, about the egg yolk and the egg white. And I wonder if that applies. I did some students that are actually seniors and they're looking back. And I thought to bring some of them in just to see their perspective, how they think they were treated in their first year, what they think they needed. And I mean, I was just blown away that some of these students, one of my favorites quote was a student that is highly academic successfully right now, said that he came in and didn't even know that they were majors in college. He didn't know. He said you just came in and it's like high school. You just get your degree and you move on, right? And so I think that's it. But that analogy of the yolk and stuff, there's a cognitive part to it, and then there's this non-cognitive part. And I think oftentimes our students cognitively can actually get there, but they don't have the non-cognitive tools to actually maintain that academic standard. And so that was something that really hit me, the idea of what college is. And I think it really falls into what Dan said. I'm in Eastern Kentucky too. The idea that the individual school, that school's culture and individual faculty and staff members are so incredibly important. When you sit and your students name people by name and said, I'm in college because of this individual that took the time. And it always seems it's above and beyond. You know, that's what every student reiterated, was like, there was this faculty member that came and helped me specifically. And it's always connected. That's not part of what we do. This teacher went above and beyond, and I'll remember for them forever. And I mean, that's what good teachers do. But what does that mean? What does other teachers do? You know, there was this real dichotomy for me about going above and beyond. And I think, Tony, I think you spoke about that too.
Yeah, and I think what that really boils down to is just relationships. The difference is in educators, whether it's TRIO, Gear Up, or a teacher, initiating relationships with students, or when a student comes to them, making sure they build a relationship, and it's not just a checkbox and try to get them out of your office as quick as you can because you have testing to do, or you have, you know, discipline for students or whatever. It is not that all those issues aren't, you know, that they need to be taken care of as well. So yeah, building relationships, and we find the same thing in Gear Up. It's like every time we end a grant, as far as I've been involved, we always hear it is Miss Alicia who made the difference. They don't say it's Gear Up. They say it's, you know, Mr. Mark or whoever. It's always the person who built the relationship with them.
Sandra, do you want to share what you wrote in the chat?
Sure. So along with being academic advisor director in the academic sphere for 20 years, I've also taught first year experience for about a decade. And in that class, some of the things I saw that were increasingly getting worse, and I didn't interview myself, so I'm going to throw this out there, is that students in general are used to success in high school. Yes, there are some that aren't quote unquote successful in the general definition, but they're used to success. So in college, when they get a C, they feel like they've failed. And then all of a sudden it's a spiral. I can't pass college. I can't do this. Then they decide they're just going to drop out because they've got a C, or even an actual failing grade on one assignment. It doesn't even have to be like a final or midterm or anything. Some of it is they don't really want to do the homework to be prepared, at least in that class. And then I did see this. I think it's really cool. I'm not sure I like it 100%, but I think the idea and the intent is there. It's called a certificate of failure. The University of Central Arkansas has it. And it says, you are hereby certified to screw up, bomb, or fail at one or more relationships, friendships, text messages, papers, exams, classes, extracurricular activities, or any other choices associated with college, and still be a totally, oh, that was supposed to be worthy, utterly excellent human being. So I think it's important for folks that keep going in the education path and attend college to understand that it's different. Different doesn't mean bad, but that they can do it and they don't have to be perfect to be successful in college.
Yeah, I'm sitting over here thinking, I love that what you just shared about that certificate. So I'm focusing right now, and OJ can affirm this for me. I'm finishing up my PhD at Bellarmine, and my focus is imposter syndrome, because, you know, I've dealt with it myself for 20, 30 years. And what I'm finding in the research is that this whole academic thing, even for our youngest of students, it's a real thing. And a lot of these triggers and things that happen that they may not decide to tell somebody about follows them, and it leads to some of these statements and some of these psychological patterns of negative thinking and self-limiting behaviors and stuff, you know. And yeah, I'm sorry, that's just a thing of mine. Y'all might hear it again. But yeah, it's something that we need to put our thumbs down on.
And I think it's a bigger issue. If you look at society, I'll use myself as an example. I was in my 30s before I gave myself permission to fail or to not try to be perfect on the first time every time. I can't remember, I was at a conference and I heard someone for the first time speak about growth mindset, and I was just blown away by the fact, you mean I can really fail and no one's going to be pissed off? No one's going to, you know, I can do it over again? And I knew that, I guess, but it for some reason hadn't clicked. I never wanted that constructive feedback. I never wanted to have to show that I didn't get it right and know everything the first time. And once I found out that that was, growth and that was okay, and others gave me permission. So I think we need to do that for our students. We need to push that at all levels of education and say, it is okay to not succeed the first time, but it doesn't mean you stop. You have to get back up.
Folks, this is robust conversation and we expected nothing less. This is great. I have been making a lot of mental connections between some of the themes that have emerged and what we're talking about now. Like the linkage to the awareness of mental health resources. I just think about the cumulative effect of a lot of the anxieties and some of the doubt when students do start to face some of these struggles. It's a reasonable outcome then that maybe they would think that this path isn't for them because they just start to see a lot of things that might look like failures. But for the sake of time, and because I am quite intrigued by hearing more of what you all have to say, we're going to move on to the next topic of conversation. And hopefully these generate just as much of the really great discussions. I'd like for us just to think about those key priorities from the interviews or from the focus groups, whatever that you assist with conducting. Maybe how do those compare, in your opinion, to the state data that's been previously shared? And as you've had a chance to think on it, oh, sorry. Is that coming on my end, the echo? So just to think about some of those priorities that emerged and comparing it back to the state data that was previously shared, and then also for us to think about, are there any themes possibly that might be missing? So just a moment of reflection and then jump in there and we'll start adding some more Post-it notes.
Lauren, do you think you could drop those? Were there 5 themes that you guys found? Could you drop those in the chat for us?
So while we are waiting for those, the primary themes were academic preparation, social capital, financial aid and literacy, wraparound supports, and partnerships.
I'll offer my thoughts really quickly on this. I think just on those themes, I think a lot of them went together, and I think about how they could go together, particularly in high school. Again, go back to the idea of how you feel prepared. Financial aid and financial literacy is, I think, a lot of that. We know based on the data, a lot of students stop out because of the perception, again, that they can't afford college. If you have a deeper sense of financial literacy and you have a better handle on your financial aid, then you are less likely, this is me theorizing, you're less likely to then think about finances to the point that it causes you to stop out in terms of a financial anxiety so high that you feel you need to go work to help your family or you need to do something else. That is likely to be diminished the more financially literate you are, and that obviously increases your financial aid. That in a lot of ways is tied to social capital, to the points that we're making up before. Not directly so much belonging, but just recognizing and seeing other people who have either gone to and through college, or having a counselor, as we talked about before, or a teacher or somebody in your high school, or the culture there that can help you understand college is a 4, 5, maybe 6-year experience. And it takes money to get there, but a lot of people do it. A lot of people get through it. Here's how you can deal with a lot of that. Then obviously academic preparation is its own clear example of how those things can get together. If you are stronger academically, you have better access to financial aid and the social capital attached to that. And then wraparound supports and partnerships, I think, obviously go together in a lot of ways as well. Are there companies, organizations, agencies that can provide a lot of these services for you? Those things connect to social capital. If you know what that stuff is, how to get the resources you need. Again, thinking about high school before you get to college in terms of that preparation, you feel better. So I see a lot of connectivity there with those themes and how they could drive particular actions at the secondary level, again, to build a culture, to build a theme. If it's a legitimate real life checklist, have these 7 things done, or whatever the research and the data say, these students are more likely to be successful after their first year or during their first year of college if they have done these 6 or 7 things in high school. I don't know what that list would look like, but something like that directly, but then also some of these other small pieces like connecting the dots on social capital, financial aid and literacy, those types of things.
OJ, if I didn't capture anything accurately, you can go ahead and put it in the chat and I can copy and paste it over.
I think you got it.
I'd like to offer something quickly on what I think is missing as I think about one of the slides talked about soft skills, and that is the behaviors and the actions that, that we display externally, yada, yada. But I'm more concerned with what's happening with our students on the inside. And so it's that inner involvement, evolvement too. It's the personal development, it's the self-awareness. If more of that can be standardized, and I know that it's just kind of embellished in things that we do, and it's not really mandatory. But if some kind of way we can start feeding our students intravenously, as my husbands like to say, maybe that could help get to the crux of some of the confidence issues that our students display. And maybe not even realize it. So I'm just so personal development, self-awareness is a big thing with me.
I think maybe, and I know social capital plays a role in this, but cultural, emotional, and social development for students. The one thing that almost every student, I interviewed 19 students from 10 different school districts just because I had a great opportunity at the Gear Up Summer Academy at EKU. But they all said they wanted to go to college to meet people, to make friends and to experience new things. But then they're so apprehensive about those things in high school, and they don't have exposure a lot of times unless they do get to take part in Governor's Scholars or even Gear Up Summer Academies or whatever it may be. And I wonder if, having those discussions the summer before they start is actually, giving them as much preparedness as they could get, I guess. Like the summer bridge programs, they're good, but would it benefit them if they could do that after the junior year and then again after the senior year? If that didn't make sense, I apologize.
Well, Tony, I want to make sure I understood. So those are really important things, but what you're saying is even though students want to be very engaged, like socially when they get there, they don't feel prepared to do that. They haven't been in that situation before, so they're more afraid or uncomfortable or intimidated.
Right.
So we need to help give them multiple experiences to engage in that way. Okay.
Because what it leads to is homesickness and staying in their dorm room and not getting out because they're just afraid. They don't know how to, initiate those discussions or just, show up somewhere and become a part of, that scene. I guess, I feel like a lot of the students, the term landlocked keeps coming to mind. I know that's not what it is. Where they're these rural areas in Kentucky, it's almost like a silo that they're in. And so until they get to go experience something, like I had students from Covington who had never eaten at a Penn Station. They had never been to Fort Boonesboro. And there was students from Marion and Mercer County that hadn't been to Fort Boonesboro. There's just so many things that they're not being exposed to. And some of the things that I hear, I'm kind of like, oh no, I don't know how well that'll go over in a larger setting like college. And that's why those cultural discussions, like we brought Dr. Don Offit in to deliver 2 lessons to students on cultural development this summer. And the students were just blown away. But she's awesome. Anyway, yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was saying, Lily. Sometimes I ramble.
Tony, there's an amazing paper out. I can send you a reference. I'm trying to find it right now, called the Eastern Kentucky Isolate. It was published in the Geographic Journal.
Okay.
If you haven't read that, that confirms a lot of what you're saying. And it's about a flow sometimes. You know, one of the things that we struggle with is, and we've got a saying on campus, and we're trying to do it very intentional programming. Our first year students, and especially our first gen students, do not do optional. Right? But how do you get programs that they are requirements? So when you talked about a bridge program, we just ran, we really trying to work hard on that, fully funded, amazing benefits and stuff. And we could have 22 students. We got them filled up, and a week before, half pulled out. And it's like, we just can't do it. We've got to go work. We've got to do this. And so how do you design programming? You know, great philosopher, right? I can't remember what the musical was. So I'd like, you know, a little bit of sugar makes the medicine go down. How do we convince our students and their families sometimes that, you know, sometimes you've got to step in, right? You've got to take part in this. And how do we make our programming intentional so it doesn't? Because if we use the word option, and we actually played with it for a few years, we like, this is mandatory, this is optional. We really recommend that. How do you get that wording right? Because the semantics become important, because we just find that if it's optional, if we can connect the word optional, it's not going to happen. And so how do you do that? And so we're trying to just build it in. But I agree with you. It's mind blowing to me that we get it set up, and it's always kind of like, you know, you get it all going, and then when push comes to shove, right on that moment where they've got to lean in, they run. And I don't think, I think it's about the kind of the social, what do you call it, social capital part, right? They just don't have sometimes, as Ms. Phyllis said, they just don't feel they belong where we're putting them. And how do you get that way? I mean, this morning I watched, we're doing our orientation. We've got some orientations going on this week. And I watched an administrator stand up there and say, so if you want to solve this problem, you go to the registrar, from the registrar to the assistant registrar, then you go to the bursar and everything. And I watched first gen parents just go blank, right? And so afterwards I spoke to a few of them. I kind of followed them, and I was like, and they're like, what's a registrar? What's a bursar? We lost them at the second sentence. And we so, you know, and so it's not just our students, it's also our first gen families, especially in Eastern Kentucky. We're not welcoming. Sometimes it smacks a little bit of elitism still, you know, but we're trying to do a democratic thing. So that's my soapbox for the day. I'll be quiet now.
All right, folks, any more, just for the sake of time, do we have other points of discussion we want to make sure is included in our notes?
Just real quick, I agree about language 100%. Even things as simple as RSVP, we found a lot of students don't know what that means. So sign up works better. So I definitely agree about watching language. I think that's a big theme statewide that we need to watch. Like scholarship for Work Ready, it seems elitist. It seems like you have to be a good student, you have to have good grades, etc. And you don't. It has nothing to do with any of that. So I think that's something that both, you know, K-12 and post-secondary all need to watch, is the language we use. But then also, just real quick, I think there's a technology gap that is a theme that we don't have captured anywhere, especially with the Chromebooks, the Google Classrooms that everybody adopted during COVID, and they come to higher ed, and Chromebooks often don't work well in higher ed settings because it doesn't mesh with the programs that are used at the higher education institutions. So I think that's a huge gap, and I'm seeing that as we're meeting with students. They're like, well, I have a Chromebook, can I use that? Well, no, not really. So I just think that's another big gap that that the state needs to take into consideration, especially with this COVID group that's so used to using nothing but a Chromebook.
I'll just chime in on that real quick because one of our campuses that's working with us on a project is doing an equity audit of their IT platforms. And so they are actually focused in on that first year student experience. And if you think about, here's the platform where you register for classes. Here's the platform where you find out all the student orgs. Here's the platform where you make an appointment with your academic advisor. Here's the one where you can see what jobs are posted on the job board. So like we're just throwing all of these tech platforms at students, and some can navigate it and some are really like left behind in that. And so I'm really excited for what we can learn about how something that we don't necessarily see as an institutional barrier, is going to illuminate that quite a bit.
All right. It would be great if we had about 4 or 5 more hours that we could focus on this, because I am, which first of all, I just got to give a kudos to Lily. I can't imagine how you're able to get all this typed up, because I'm looking down at my notebook and I filled up 2 or 3 pages. Unfortunately, I can barely read my own writing, but it would be great if we could continue. So we'll transition on to another point of discussion here.
Robert,
yes.
I would just encourage us to stay with this as long as, we can push the ranking of priorities to our next meeting. I would love to just spend as much time and energy as we need to on this feedback right here.
Absolutely. And we have the group that has the insight to share. So as we look at this, we're going to try to refine, we're going to try to make processes bear a little bit more fruit that will be helpful for us in coming up with solutions. So as we've looked at what's been presented and our discussion so far, the question is what's missing? What are some points of data maybe that would help supplement or give a different perspective to some of the findings? What are new ways that we could look at addressing the problems that we're seeing come up, that we could maybe get some more perspectives added into our discussion? So what's missing? Who are we missing? What are some questions we need to rethink? What are your all's thoughts on this?
I think so. For me, I was the one that did the focus group of the community-based organization, and so they don't fit squarely within the districts or post-secondary, but there are a number of community-based organizations that are working with these student populations and participating in a lot of assisting in these services that maybe aren't represented through the district or through the post-secondaries, but that are stakeholders in the communities and that are doing this work. So it would be interesting to see who else is doing what and how to better leverage those organizations as well.
I don't know how this would be done necessarily, but I haven't seen anything from the Forgotten Middle. So middle income folks, middle of the road students, what are their perspectives? The students who aren't making good enough grades academically to get scholarships, and their parents don't make enough money to pay for them to go to college. That was me, and student loans got me in trouble.
I think there could be something said for the faith-based community, only because I know there are arms of these communities that are doing some things with education in terms of, their after school programs and things like that, and the way they connect with some of the other CBOs.
are there any student voices or any other stakeholders that would be on more of the, not the customer side, but on more like the student side that maybe we need to include? Are there any groups or communities that maybe we need to specify and get maybe drill down a little bit further into the demographics to help address that? But and I will say, just as a quick point, there's been a lot of mention so far of like geographic regions as being representative of a group. If we had additional demographic data, though, I think that helps to break that up so that we don't think about that as a monolith, because even the references, and I'm from Eastern Kentucky also, but even some of the references to Eastern Kentucky, I think those could be bolstered a little bit, just because there are many points of intersectionality within all of our populations, and that very well could be another way to add additional perspectives and to layer the complexity a bit with some of the findings that we're producing.
I was thinking that I think we talked to a lot of high school students, but only a few college students. And it would be, I think, good to get a little bit more perspective from students who have recently experienced it. And so that we can understand the anticipation and the fears and how people are, a little nervous about what's to come, but then also like looking back, wow, this is what I wish I'd known, or this was really essential for me being successful. And just as like, I can just throw this out there, but the collaborative is hopefully going to be bringing on a student voice team this fall that might be able to take this interview protocol and have some conversations with current college students, hopefully representative of different campuses and obviously racial diversity and other diversity pieces.
Is that the Pritchard Committee student voice team?
It's not.
It's not? Okay.
I'd like to highlight Leah's comment from the chat, because I think that's a very that's a very important perspective to consider.
I think I was just thinking that the composition of this work group is, all of us are going to know a lot of students who intend to go to college or who are in college by nature of, jobs and profession, but we're missing everyone who didn't go, and maybe some of them didn't go for, reasons that are, they want to go into a trade and college is not relevant for their goals, but we're only finding the students who actually somehow managed to get through the application and the financial aid, and they got in the door, but we know that that's not everybody, and perhaps there are students who would have had there been more support or intervention, or I don't know. That's why we would need to talk to them.
Yeah, I want to add to your comment, if I may, another group that fits right alongside them, the folks who started their first year of college but didn't finish. Because to your point, I mean, they walked in the door, they had something that got them there, but then ultimately they walked out. So talking to them to know what that stuff was, the reasoning. Again, there's a lot of data out there that we can read, certainly already on that group, but for our purposes, I think talking at least to some folks within that cohort, I think could be useful alongside the folks that you mentioned who didn't go to college, but could have and chose not to, or just didn't go. But hearing from those groups, I think, would be really good.
I guess the other related to data that I think would be interesting to see is I heard mention of there is longitudinal data out there that could be analyzed and could be looked at. I'd be very interested in seeing that, because what we really are talking about is a 4-year, presumably, cycle, right? And the outcome after 4 years is what we are ultimately focused on. Did people get through college? How was their success? Not just year 1 or year 2. So I think I'd like to see some of that longitudinal data, whatever it may be.
If I could throw in one, this is going to be a reach, so just tell me if it doesn't need to be included, but I am sincerely thinking about 2 types of folks who touch the lives of our younger students in a great way. And that is folks related to athletics and those related to music. I think it could be interesting because these are some serious livelihoods for those who are involved, you know, including the parents. So what y'all think about that? I don't know, I feel like I'm reaching, but I know there's something there as a former music teacher.
I think
what got me to higher ed, but go ahead.
I say that really speaks to me being the parent of kids at an arts integrated school. The athletic, arts teachers are incredibly important, and they actually, particularly in high school, have a lot of influence on students' career choices. I know at the program my kids are in, as it continues into high school, teachers do have conversations about careers in the arts with high school students. I think it would be really important to hear from those teachers. So I'm for it. I think that's a great idea.
I'm personally very passionate about stop outs. So following Leah and OJ's comments about student populations, and looking at U of L's data, most of our students stop out within their first 2 years if they return on their 6-year window. So they return quickly if they're coming back. And so what's going on? There's a recent dissertation published, not published, but available online. I didn't publish it outside of U of L, but if you want to read a dissertation on stop outs, but like about their why for leaving and returning. So I think stop outs even now have a lot to offer in their experience. And then the other piece that kept coming up in all these discussions is this financial aid affordability piece, right? And I know we're in Louisville, so our financial aid staff get asked to be at a zillion things, and it's definitely just like everywhere, an understaffed office, one that I don't ever want to work in because it's so highly regulated, right? Like that they are under a lot of stress. And then we have Kia, who is trying to fill a lot of gaps. And then there's a couple other community-based organizations, but that's a voice too, right? Of bringing in the financial aid teams and the community organizations working on the financial piece to really look at what else needs to be done, because it's definitely an area that everybody seems to agree there needs to be more, and kind of whose role, how do you do that? Like I know U of L now has incoming student financial aid officers, like advisors that are just working with students from application, to getting them in. And that's new for us in the last few years. It used to just always be like the alpha rotation and you have an aid counselor when you have an aid counselor, right? But now it's like they do a lot of outreach and support with the incoming group. But each school has a little operating on different timelines and processes, and and so how do you coordinate that a little bit better?
Any other additions we'd like to add to this section? All right, and just also be mindful, should things come up, we can share, we can always include this after the fact, so.
I actually have one. I'm sorry, Robert.
Go right ahead.
Teachers, did we, and professors?
All right. And we can definitely go back if we need. It's like the fun just keeps building to a crescendo, and now we get to let our creativity flow that much more. So now just thinking about, so what do we do? What are some thoughts about how do we go about answering these additional questions? Who's responsible for gathering the additional data, or maybe getting some more information from these key stakeholders? Very curious to hear some of the thoughts that you all have on this.
Robert, from my perspective, right, I think the protocol is an amazing one. It's easy. Delivering it was easy. Obviously, for us, it's cyclical. We kind of smaller, private. The reason some of these stakeholders, we didn't include them, is they're just not around during the summer, right? So if we start looking at first year students and stuff like that, and especially with some of the new stuff, I agree. I think it's Katie was talking about those step outs, right? I mean, we are actually in an active process of looking at that. But now we're starting to look at step backs. Are they coming back? People within 18 hours of graduating and stuff like that. So what changed? And so I don't know. I think many of us can get those questions asked if there's a need to do that. I did not approach some of those groups because they're just not accessible right now for us in an easy way, if that makes sense, you know. So I had to necessarily go with seniors because they're around, they're on campus in the summer. It was easy to get them. But especially some of the first year, and I didn't reach out to much of our high school population either. And that was just proximity and accessibility during the summer.
That's a really good point about the academic calendar. Just that it proved to be a limiting factor. So thank you. That's a very good point.
I think if you want masses, there's got to be some sort of list, for lack of a better descriptor, somewhere that there could be a Google form or some kind of survey or something that folks could easily, not 300 questions long or anything, but a simple, give us your feedback. It's anonymous thing that you could get just masses of response. But that would just, I don't know exactly if that would help narrow it down, but that's a way to get masses if you want larger numbers of folks to do input. That would be a simple survey as opposed to an interview.
Especially for teachers and professors during the academic year, I think they're much more likely to want to be involved or just to answer a survey as opposed to a focus group.
I like that. We can definitely consider diversifying the instruments used to collect data. What are some other thoughts maybe we have on this?
I'm interested to hear a little bit about the Pritchard Committee's student voice team. We're bringing on some of those a student voice team for specific projects that involve like a need to gather student voice. And so I don't know how, I could say, well, yeah, we could maybe get a couple more interviews in through that group, but what about the Pritchard Committee one, if anyone knows anything about that?
They are a phenomenal group. I don't know what projects they're working on right now, but her name, Rachel Beelan, I think, was their director. But Kim Welch can probably put you into contact with them to discuss it more. I've worked with them some in the previous grant, and the students, they're just phenomenal. You wouldn't think they're high school students, and they'll follow a very specific research proposal, making sure that whatever we want them to do is what would be done. And then they'll put it all together, basically in a book. Like I also did the Kia commercials or the FAFSA commercials that KBA broadcast and that you see on TV once in a while. I actually coordinated that with students at Dunbar and the Pritchard Committee student voice team. They did all of that pretty much by themselves. So they're top level. And then we also did the project in the last one where they went to each of our districts in the grant and they interviewed families, both parents and students. They did roundtable discussions. I can't remember what it's called right now, unfortunately, but all their work is available to review. That's why I asked if that's who it was when you when you mentioned
Yeah.
it.
Well, yeah, we'll reach out to Kim and just see what she thinks. And they contact college students, or is it just high school students?
They'll do whatever. Some of them are in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just work remotely. You know, they make it work. So
You know, one thing I just learned about was the Family Scholar House's call center program. And so, you know, they have a whole contract with KCTCS, and KCTCS could give them a roster of 1,000 students and ask them to call and do an interview protocol with them. And potentially that could give us some incredible data.
yes.
Yeah, we use Family Scholar House a lot at Elizabethtown Community and Technical College.
I know that our school district periodically sends out district-wide surveys, you know, for any number of reasons. Is it possible to partner with various school districts to see if you can add just a couple of questions to a survey that might go out to students across the state?
Lily, we actually survey all of our students twice a year in the 12 Gear Up districts. So that might be something that you want to talk with Kim about as well. It's not all the schools, but it's pretty much open access for those 12 districts.
Okay.
Any remaining discussion on this? This is great.
So it sounds like an email survey, an online survey for faculty and teachers, and then lots of opportunities to do more individual calls or interviews, or tack on to an existing survey for students. Okay, very good. Lots of great ideas. And anything else y'all want me to add? Whew. I think this is an epic agenda here. Oh, whoops. I'm trying to find my process notes. What do we do next, Robert?
We are now going to transition over to looking a little bit more specifically at some solutions that we can think through based on the discussions we've had up to this point, and some of the data that's been presented. And
Okay, yes. So the next couple of slides are word clouds again. And so basically just trying to get the really like high level, like I think one word on, so everything that we've talked about related to the themes from the data, what we thought might be our interpretations of that, and implications for the highest priorities. What we're going to do now is we're going to brainstorm these challenges. And I think you can input more than one thing that you think is a challenge, but just try to be succinct in like 1, 2, max 3 words. And let me just give a little preview, because the next one is, so first we're going to brainstorm, throw all the challenges out there. And then we're going to pick a couple. So then we're going to say, oh gosh, there's 15. What do we think are the top priorities this year? And it'll still just be brainstorming. And so this is throw your top 3 out there. And then we'll go and we'll actually rank them. And if we don't get this far, that's okay. But we'll just kind of see how far we get. And perfect. Y'all already in that Mentimeter. So. Oh, and this isn't a word cloud, so everybody's individual responses will show up. And then from here, we'll probably do more of trying to narrow it down. Whew. Love that. Phyllis, did you say food? Was that you? No, it wasn't. Well, I was just looking at the emoji. It just made me think of you.
Yes, I live by them. Yes, it's me. It's only this because my daughter told me that. Okay, that's not me, that's her.
This is so good. Is there anything else? Because this is, you can throw out as many as you want. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start back up at the top because we have a lot. And some of these are definitely reinforcing. So they're very similar. They're kind of maybe under a big umbrella. But as you're looking at them, try to think about your top 3 as we read through this list, okay? And so kind of make your own notes because this will go away when we get to the next screen. So make your own notes of the 3 things that you think are most important as the key challenges that we want to address in the next year. So it's just kind of, what do you think we kind of need to start with? Those building blocks that some of these maybe other great ideas can be built upon. So we got financial literacy, clarifying purpose, process awareness, transition to adulthood, imposter syndrome, sense of belonging, wraparound supports, return on investment, financial and personal, connection, understanding information, wraparound supports, lack of critical social networks, faculty having realistic, clear, student-ready expectations, sense of belonging, social networking capital, knowing deadlines, lack of consistent messaging for all students, non-cognitive factors in success, financial barriers, meeting students where they are, mental health, reflection skills, simplified or common terminology, personal organization, normalizing failure, not knowing what they don't know, early career exploration, communicating challenges and opportunities with key stakeholders, mental health, envisioning success, organizational skills, time management, etc., food, stronger high school to college partnerships and pathways, critical thinking, information literacy, knowing where and how to find information, always food, having materials needed, lack of meta majors, universal high-speed internet access, breakdown in transition points between high school and college, milestone checklist so students see how prepared they are, even if they are still afraid of the transition, college culture, post-COVID cognitive bandwidth, 85% of traditional students have non-traditional characteristics after COVID, serving them all, providing appropriate scaffolding during the transition from high school to college, not knowing anyone potentially, racial incidents, lack of case management type note-taking software at higher ed institutions to help students not have to repeat their story over and over, wellness inventory, self-sufficiency inventory to early ID student who may need additional supports. Does anybody need to look at it? I can do a slow scroll again if anyone. Okay. Let me write down mine. Okay, here we go. All right, so go ahead and just please put in your top 3. Hmm.
I'm trying to get mine in. It keeps telling me there's an issue connecting. I'll do it again though.
If you put yours in the chat, I can make sure that they're incorporated, Tony.
Third time was a charm. Yep.
Oh, good, good, good. Okay, did everybody have a chance? Put theirs in? Okay, awesome. So we'll just kind of look at these. Social, some of them I still, it's just if you financial and then someone put financial literacy, like they're not gonna, but they are the same. Social integration, social capital, belonging, sense of belonging. So I see like a theme there, connection and engagement. Okay, we've got wraparound supports. Trying to see if there's others. Wraparound supports, wraparound support. Okay, good. We've got financial literacy, got financial literacy. All right, we've got career purpose, got return on investment, maybe Meta Majors Career Expo. We've got academic, which might be, is that academic preparation, academic supports, academic exploration. I'm making those words up, but just there's a lot in there with that one word. Okay, high school to college transition, connecting between high school and probably college, better communication. We've got technology and okay, we've got Maslow's hierarchy, which might also be connected to wraparound support. Better communication. Then you've got psychological, mental health is huge, personal development. Those are really great, I think, top ones that really surfaced for us. I know we had some people that had to leave the meeting early, and so I would love to give them the opportunity to kind of participate in this before we move forward on any of the ranking pieces. But I'll just give you a preview of what is to come as we're wrapping up this meeting here. So our next meeting is in August, right, Robert? Okay, so Robert and I and some of the other transition folks will get together and we'll look at everything that we put on the big brainstorm slide, and then also what we kind of narrowed down. We'll make sure that we get everybody else's input who wasn't able to be a part of this section of the meeting. And we'll hopefully have a top 4 or even a top 5, it doesn't really matter, themes. And then at the beginning of our next meeting, we can kind of pick up here and take some time. Where would we put those as, as we rank them? And we can do more than one thing as a group, but it is certainly, we probably can't do 5 in 1 year. So just kind of getting a sense of where the group really wants to spend our energy this year. So just as I think this is the last slide as we're wrapping up, I hope that August 22nd works for you all. Our objective of that meeting will be to rank our top priorities for action for this group and then begin to formulate recommendations for action. So it's going to be a really good meeting, really, really awesome. Okay. And if you need access to any of the documents, I think related to this, or let's see, who's here? Robin, do you know much about, or Joette, do you know what the cpe.koa.gov and then following that path will lead us to? Does that lead us to our meeting minutes and things such as that? Okay.
Yes, that's exactly where it takes you.
Okay, so we'll put, the presentation will be out there, and I'm sure some of the research presentation as well, if you want to go back and access that, can also send it out over email as a follow-up. Okay. I'll stop sharing. If I can figure out how to do that. Where'd my share? There it is. Okay. Well, really appreciate everybody. This was like an incredible conversation today, and I feel really great about better understanding the data and also seeing where we have an opportunity to gain more insights from key stakeholder groups as we move forward. So, Robert, anything else?
No, other than today was a super good example of why this group was selected. I think the insights shared and just the general thoughtfulness with every slide, we could have kept going. So yeah, you guys are great, and it is very much appreciated.
All right, everybody, 7 minutes back in your pockets. Have a great rest of your day.
Hey, Lily. Hey, Lily.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Brett. If Sandra, are you still on here? Could you hold on just for 1 second? I got a quick question